Alright guys, sorry for the lack of anything for like the last 2 weeks, but there's been a bunch of personal stuff come up lately and I haven't been able to do this for a while. Basically, these are cheap CV boots, and I've not even drove this thing but maybe a couple hundred feet around the yard while being pulled by something else, and these boots are destroyed. So the moral of the story is, don't buy cheap CV boots off eBay. Buy decent brand ones. I don't remember what the brand I bought to replace these were, but they were a lot better than this. Anyway, to replace a CV boot, first thing you gotta do is get the tire off. Get the seat or the Kotteke pin out of the ball joint. These ball joints are 17 millimeter, and you just gotta loosen them. I already loosened that. Get this off, and you're also gonna have to take your shock mount off because you're gonna have to remove this entire axle. Easiest way to do it is just take the shock out, take the bottom ball joint off, take this big nut here off, and then pull the axle out, replace it, and put it back in, and put everything back together. So I'm going to show you how I do that. I have no idea off the top of my head what size this nut right here is, so I got to figure that out. But these are always going to be 14 millimeter, and you just got to get the shock off one way or the other. So after you have all the Kottekes removed and everything, you're going to have to remove this nut right here. And sometimes that can be a bit of a pain, but the easiest way that I can think of to do it is get a piece of angle iron. Flat bar would work, but it's flimsy. It likes to move around a little bit unless it's thick stuff like 1/2 inch or so. And just, these holes were already in there, and this is a big slot, so it just happened to go fine. But just get one that will go on this. Put 2 nuts on there tight, and normally, since you want to loosen it, you'd want this over there, but my jack's in the way, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to stand on it and pick up on it. You want to put a block underneath this if you're on a concrete floor, because it can chip the concrete if you're not careful. And a lot of times you'll need a cheater pipe, but I had this off not too terribly long ago, and I oiled it, and it's not been any mud since. So I knew it was going to come off relatively easy. Not easy, but just okay. Next, take the angle iron off. Then you got to remove the bottom ball joint, and you should already have the Kotteke out. This is a cheap Harbor Freight ball joint puller. I would never use it for a vehicle, but it works great for ATVs. Stick this in on the upper side of the ball joint under the boot, and the other part underneath it. And I think you can kind of see what I'm talking about there, like that, except for just have this more centered. Now that the ball joint puller is actually under there right, you need to get a crescent wrench. It don't have to be anything good, just whatever you can get that'll fit that. Tighten it up, and you'll eventually hear a loud pop, and when you do, that means the ball joint is loose. Like that. And it'll drop. Then you can drop the bottom A-arm, and then you can pick this whole thing up and slide the axle out. And now with that off, you can actually take this hub completely off and then put it back on. Put the axle nut back on, put it on tight, And the way that I think is easiest to actually get these things off is instead of yanking on them or prying on them and risking ruining the seal, I think this is like a 5-pound slide puller or something like that. It's pretty damn big. I don't know, but it's extremely old, but it happens to fit just fine. So put 2 lug nuts on, put them on just enough to hold it against the hub tight. And the next part, people are going to argue that it will hurt the axle and break it and do whatever, but I've never broke one, honestly. So if you break one, that's probably your fault, not mine. Next, hold it out nice and straight, get a good angle on it, pull it, extend it out all the way, and just give it a good slide. And then it'll pop out just like that. You gotta take this thing off now, and then go inside and clean up your axle, because you'll probably get it all dirty like I did. Now's a good time to also check your wheel bearings now that the hubs are off and everything. And mine are all right. They're not rough, but they're old. So I'm gonna clean this up and then go inside and actually replace the boot now, or both boots actually.